Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Andertons TV. Today, my special guest is John Cruz, who some of you will be familiar with the name. Almost legendary status, one of the most in-demand builders at Fender's Custom Shop in California. So, welcome to England.
Thank you very much.
Are you a seasoned traveller of these shores?
I don't know about, well, I've been here a few times. I'm not sure if I'm seasoned yet. I've been seasoned with a lot of rain here today, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it's a great country. The people are nice. The food's really good. It's just it's a great place to be. A great place to be a musician. A great place to have great music stores. Like,
are you confusing us with France?
No,
France. You definitely. We are talking. No, it's very kind of you to say so. So, take us back a bit. You've been at the Custom Shop for, gosh, as long as I can remember. Your name's been on the list of Masterbuilt.
Yeah. I think I started at the Custom Shop in 1993.
Wow.
And I actually started at the factory at the company in 1987. So it's been 30 years.
Were you one of Bill Schultz's kind of, original team to go and sort of, Phoenix from the flames it?
Yeah, pretty much. He was the man driving the sleigh at the time, and company was much smaller at the time. The facility was a lot smaller. A lot of things that we have now we did not have back then, but it was I could tell it was a growing company. I already knew the name, and it was just like, wow, this is the company. If you're going to get into any company, this is the one you want to be in. And
prior to that, how did you get into? How did you even just get into playing guitar, let alone building them?
I just self-taught. I was brought up in an athletic family. All of us played. My brothers and I played baseball growing up. Football was a big sport, and that's kind of where I was headed. I was thinking I was going to be the next, Bubba Smith or whatever, just a pro football player is what I wanted to do with my life. And I got hurt at an early age playing high school football, where I damaged my knees pretty bad, and they just never really quite recovered the way I wanted to, and I had a lot of pain, and even to this day, it still kind of bugs me a little bit. So it's like, what am I going to do now? So being at school, hanging out of school, during the lunch hour, you'd see guys out there playing acoustic guitar, and I'm like, look at him, that's kind of cool. This one cat came walking through, and he had like this, I don't know if it was a homemade guitar, but it was really badly made electric guitar. And I'm looking at it, that's kind of cool, let me check it out. I had no idea how to play the thing, the strings are this high off, and I was thinking, man. And but I took an interest to it right away. I was like, this is kind of cool, man. And he ended up giving me that guitar. So I took it home, and I'm just kind of like looking at it, and I put it away. Never thought anything about it again. And but slowly, start listening to the early music that I grew up on. I got kind of a late start of learning how to play guitar. I didn't start till I was like 16 or so, and I just picked it up, and it just turned into something I really wanted to do. And I started out singing, trying to be Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. I listened to a lot of Aerosmith records, and of course Thin Lizzy was one of my earliest influences listening to, and it's like the ultimate rock star guys, you know what I mean? I got to do that. That's what I want to do. If I'm not going to play football in a stadium, I'm going to play music in a stadium. That was like the goal back then.
And as a player, was there, did you have any success, or was it always something that was just, you know, hobby or?
Well, to me, it was success because every time you go to play somewhere, if there's more than 50 people in there, it's a success. Yeah. To me, you know.
Well, and I would agree, still is now.
Yeah, but it was always our dream as kids growing up and starting bands together. Our dream is to be on the big plateau of playing theaters and arenas and all that stuff. Sadly, it didn't happen to a lot of us. Some of my friends went on and made some pretty good success, but I was good with it. I just loved playing and writing music at the time, and anywhere we could get a gig, we would take it. You know, it was just a lot of fun, and I'm completely self-taught. That's why, people notice, like, well, dude, you got a really unorthodox way of playing and fingering and stuff, like, but it works for me. Yeah. Some people takes a whole thing to do a full chord. I can usually do it with like 2 fingers. It's like, what are you doing? That's totally wrong, but I don't care. It works for me.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So what piqued the interest in building? I mean, were you just starting off repairing and
yeah, one of my first guitars I got was a Japanese copy of a Strat. Imagine that. And it was a white. I remember it was like a pearl white color with a maple neck and had a black pickguard on it, kind of an early Jakey Lee looking guitar, if you will, but I didn't even know who he was at the time. But my dad was a painter in the auto industry for 40-odd years, and he always had some cool color books there at the shop, which we, use for Fender guitars, And I saw some of the new colors that they had, and there was like a lot of sparkle type colors, and I saw this one that just piqued my characteristic wanting to have it. It was like a sparkle purple, really, really cool color. And I go, Dad, can you paint that color on my guitar? Yeah, we could do it. And he goes, you got to take the guitar apart and let me have it. And so I did it. No problem, taking everything, the screws out, unsoldering everything. Here you go. Then he gives it back to me. It's gorgeous, by the way. I go to put it back together, and I was mortified. I was like, what do I do? I'm lost, So I just kind of played around with it, put this together, kind of looking at soldering joints. Okay, maybe that went there. And plug it in, it's not working, shoot, try this, plug it in, oh, there it is right there. So it was a trial and error thing for me to kind of learn. And when I did that, I was like, that was actually kind of fun doing that. So I could play, but instead of paying some guy to like do repairs in my car, I'm going to start learning how to do it myself. And I kind of did. And I'm not going to lie to you, I butchered quite a few of my own guitars, which I think a lot of people do in the beginning. But I was lucky enough to get a kind of a small job working at a music store, just helping them stock. When the UPS guys or the FedEx guys would drop off boxes, they needed that one little grunt to run out there and pick the boxes up and bring them in and take the stuff out of the boxes, shine them up, and give them to the guys to hang up on the hooks and stuff. So I was that guy.
And then, did you have a job? When you started at Fender, was that your first ever experience of being in an environment where you were actually going to make guitars, or had you by then already had some previous?
Yes, that was actually the first time.
The first time.
Yeah.
So very much just like an operative on a shop floor, kind of just we did back in those days. See, I've heard sort of like a myth, if you like, that at the point Bill Schultz kind of and his team bought the company, output of like the American side of things was almost zero.
Right.
And it really was sort of a starting from scratch. So I mean,
it really was.
What was it like then?
Basically starting on the, like you said, from the floor, literally for me, because I was on the floor with the dustpan and a broom sweeping the floors up. That's how I started. And, they needed somebody to do that. We didn't have dust collection systems at the time because, like I said, the output wasn't as great where we're doing hundreds and hundreds of guitars every day. It was a very small crew in there. But, we would work a couple hours and then we would take a break. And the guys would go out and have a cheese sandwich and a cup of coffee. And they would point at me like, one guy would point at me, look at the machine, and I'd open the door of the machine and it was piled up with sawdust. I was that guy that had to go in there and clean it out and dump it in the trash can.
And it literally was like a machine.
Yeah.
Like one machine.
Planers, sanders, all that kind of stuff throughout the floor.
But I mean, as in the line there, I think people probably have visions now of there being like, 50 CNC machines. Where,
right.
Was it literally like just a machine?
Well, there was a couple, several machines throughout the shop, but there was no real big like high-end CNC machines at that point yet. And so, I did it pretty good. And my goal was I was going to be the best floor sweeper in the company's ever seen.
Good goal.
I thought of that. And I go, because I really loved the company when I came in. My goal was when we took the tour of the company for the first day, when I came in, all the guitars hanging up the top, fell in love with it. Then I got into the final area where they tuned test guitars. I'm like, that's me right there. I could sit at that bench all day long and play guitar like these guys do. Little did I know they had to do so many guitars a day later on, and I got thrown into that. But it was like what I wanted to do. It's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's what everybody wants to do when you come into this industry. And but I had to work my way up. I had to show these guys that I can do it.
Yeah.
You put me in any task and I'll figure it out, which I did. And I pretty much bounced around from different areas from the wood shop. Then I got a call for an opening to work in the neck department, which was a real big thing for me because I got to work with Scott Buell that works with us in the custom shop early on. But my highlight was working next to Herbie Gastelumi, who just retired this last year.
Right.
And he'd started in Fender in 1961. So who better to learn to shape necks from the master himself? And he taught me like everything to do, the mistakes I was doing, because I butchered a few necks at the beginning, which we all do, you know. But it was about learning the feel of the neck and what it takes to be like a Fender neck. And he taught me all that stuff, and I'll never forget that.
So how many years was it? I'm trying to think. Didn't the custom shop was kind of opened in the early 90s, wasn't it?
Well, it actually was 1987 when I started.
So
they were just starting to open the door at the time. And as I worked through the wood shop and up, short time in buff and polish, and in final assembly I got in there, and then I became a tune tester, which was a highlight of my career. I thought that was going to be it. It was around that time, working into it maybe a year or so, doing that. John Page, who was the director of the custom shop at the time, was walking through. You know, he's just kind of looking because he's trying to make his team grow over on the custom shop. I had no idea. I knew who he was and I knew what he did, but I didn't know that he was there to recruit some of the better players, guys that on the team. And he's always talking to the supervisor, who are the guys that are standing out here? And there was a couple guys' name up, and one of my name came up. So right away he came up to me and he asked me, he goes, hey bro, you know, I hear you're doing good things over here, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in maybe coming over to the custom shop. I'm like, my eyes lit up, you know. And he's just, I can't. It's kind of a new thing right now. We're trying some things and stuff. We want to do this. I can't guarantee it's going to be a lot of full-time hours. Sometimes you'll work some days will be kind of slow. So there's a chance you might be laid off a little bit. And as soon as I heard that, I went, I can't have that because I just bought a new car to be able to get back and forth to work. And I go, I got to have full-time hours, man, to pay for my car. And regretfully, I denied his request at the time, and I was totally bummed because as soon as I see him walk off into the sunset, I'm like, I'll never see him again, you know. And he ended up going on. The custom shop was starting to grow at this time. Move ahead a couple more years later, and it was 1993 by that time. He came back through again, and I didn't even let him have a chance to finish. You know, I knew when he was there to ask me, and I just said, quiet, I'm in, let's go. And so I went over there, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life.
What is that? You know, I think people have a vision of what it's like to build a guitar, and I think it goes everything from, at one end, I think people have a vision that you just chuck a tree in the end of one machine and it spits a guitar out the other. And then there's other, you know, at the other end, it's, you know, sort of wizened old craftsmen with chisels and hammers and everything. Can we just talk about perhaps the fundamental difference between what happens when a guitar's made in the regular Corona kind of. So I'm not talking about the sort of Far Eastern stuff, but just like a regular, like a professional Strat or something like that, versus a custom shop. Well, how does it, you know, how does it feel? Or what's the vibe? You know, why is it different?
Well, in the earlier days of custom shop, there was a lot of pin routing going on, especially if there was somebody doing a custom guitar, like a double neck or something. You couldn't do CNC programs of that guitar at the time, and we didn't really have CNCs back then. But a lot of the guys would be pin routing their own bodies and doing those kind of custom guitars.
So that you're talking about using a jig of some sort, and just routing by hand. Yeah. Okay.
And then you know, the regular production guitars were already starting to move to these CNC-esque type machines that the Shota machine was one that would cut multiple bodies at the same time very accurately. We started using those. The custom shop got a hold of something very similar, but only did 1 to 2 bodies at a time. And it was really, really cool. But doing that with those type of machines was an experience for everybody because it was a new thing. You know, gone were the days of working on band saws and then pin routing the body completely and doing everything, which is a great way to do it. But in our industry where we have to deliver so many guitars and the demand was getting bigger and bigger, we had to figure out ways to get to that point where we can deliver a competitive guitar that was, you know, pretty much the same. Felt great every time, and consistent on the body shapes and everything. And those machines are what we ended up using. And yeah, that's how that whole thing works with that.
But there must be, I mean, I'm going probably controversial question here. There feels to me some magic when you pick up a custom shop guitar. I think when I pick up an American standard guitar, what blows me away is value for money, the consistency from one guitar to the next, just how beautifully they are finished, whatever. But there isn't necessarily that sense of uniqueness. When I pick up a custom shop guitar, everyone seems to have its own voice and its own. And I'm wondering how much of that is just psychological, because I know that one says custom shop on it and one doesn't.
Right.
Or you as a builder, can you go, no, I can see why, from a build perspective, why custom shop guitars would have something intangibly magical about them, you know, given that at the end of the day, it's all Strats and Tellys and you know, Jags and Jazzmasters.
Well, you got to think of it this way. Fender as a company, now that we're so big, we're well over 1,000 people working in the company. They're all very skilled people
just
what
in
they
America.
do.
Just in North America.
Yeah. It's a big company, and we all have our specific jobs that we do. But in the custom shop, like John Page did in the early days, he would always go out and try to find the best people he can. So it's basically the best of the best within that company come to the custom shop. So right there, okay, so you got these guys working at a level, you know, quite a bit above some of the people that are working down there. And it's nothing against what they did. They do a great job. It's just that we're handpicking people, the best people that we think will fit with what we do. And the beauty of being in a custom shop is that, yeah, we use a lot of the same woods that they would use over on the production line. But the beauty of it is we have a wood vendor guy that works with us to source out wood from all over the world. We have a guy that sorts our wood for us from light to medium to heavy, from grain to figure, all that stuff, which on the production side, they pretty much will grab, you know, bodies off the top of the pallet and start making them. Custom shop, we get to kind of pick and choose like the best woods.
What is that? I mean, I've been involved. I mean, YouTube's been a crazy place for this sort of Tonewood debate, and I think my own personal take is that if you choose different materials to make any guitar from, whatever the materials are, from the bits that touch the strings to the bits that don't touch the strings, if you just make it out of different stuff, you will fundamentally change the characteristic and vibe of that guitar. I've got some. I'm pretty certain in my own mind that I've got certain woods that have a certain impact on the sort of the tone of the guitar, and I know, you know, there'll be a percentage of YouTubers out there sort of going, science says it can't, you know, it's like whatever. You know, I'm only saying what I personally feel. I definitely think that, you know, we get sold a bit of a line about just because a wood is expensive, therefore it's going to somehow be better. I think I've probably got sucked into that a little bit in my time selling guitars, where you know. But I think my vibe now is I'm pretty uncomfortable with this idea of like better and worse. I'm just very, very comfortable with this idea that different is different. You know, different. And if you as a player, you like a certain vibe, then the chances are, you know, if you tried 5 guitars made from different timbers, but to the same spec, one will appeal to you more than the others, and it will have something to do with the timbers that have been used. But what's your take on that? You know, we got the opportunity to talk with another one of the custom shop builders, Chris Fleming, about 2 or 3 years ago, and he came out with an unbelievably bold statement of like 80% of the vibe of the guitar is down to the timbers that you choose to build it from. And I was a bit like, whoa, okay, fair enough. But, you know, he's built a bucket load more guitars for famous people than I've ever built. So, you know, but what's your, you know, where do you sit on the...
Well, I mean,
on that one?
Being in the custom shop and being a builder now, we do get to pick and choose some different woods that we'd like to try out for tone. But when I was first there and getting into the basic woods that we were using were alder and ash, maple, rosewood. Those seem to feel like the 4 components of Fender guitars, which, you know, for over 60 years, that's what it's been, you know. But the custom shop, I built guitars out of mahogany, out of koa, you know, some of the greatest looking woods in the world. Some of them sound great, some of them maybe not so, more of a looker guitar, you know. But I'm Mr. Simpleton when it comes to guitar tones, and I'm pretty easy to please as long as I can pick that guitar up and see the solid build of the guitar. Yeah, the wood has a lot to do with it. There's combinations that I like to use, like on a 50 Strat. Ash to me is a little bit brighter sounding wood, as is a full maple neck. So, an early 54 Strat is a great guitar, but to me it always had a little bit of brightness to it, which is great for some people. It will cut through really good. But when you start mixing combinations of an alder body with a maple neck, you get a little bit more of a bassier type tone out of an alder body, in my opinion. And with the maple neck, a little bit of brightness, you combine those two together with the pickups, the way that the neck is joined at the body. That's a real important thing that Chris Fleming probably had mentioned also, that the way the neck fits into the body is utterly important, because, when you strike a chord, it rings throughout the whole guitar. If you've got gaps in there and stuff like that, it's one more of a reason why it's probably not going to, ring throughout the whole board. I've always been a firm believer of that. And, so construction-wise, it's really important. But different woods. I also like another combination of a maple rosewood neck and an ash body. I think sounds really cool. I've done a lot of 60s guitars that way, and people are like blown away by the tone of it, But yeah, it's important, and I really like the basic type woods, but I will use mahoganies and like I said, koas and those type of woods too.
Do you have a take on the weight? Because I think it's, again, I've met a lot of players who've got it in their head that they like the lighter bodied ones have a different resonance to the heavier body ones, and I don't know if I think the one tangible thing you can say about the weight, of course, is that if you buy a lightweight one, it's probably more comfortable to wear on a strap for a period of time. But I'm very much a believer that you cannot prejudge how a guitar is going to sound based on the ingredients on a list. Until those ingredients are all mixed together and it's a thing.
Right.
And you go, oh yeah, I like it or I don't like it. I mean, I've played guitars that have design elements to them that I think I'm not going to like.
Right.
But then I play it and I really like it.
You like it.
And then I have other ones which have all the ingredients which I think I would like, but then you just go, I don't. So I definitely think my guitar playing journey has left me going, don't prejudge anything until you've actually played it. Yeah.
I think the whole weight issue kind of plays into the older cats out there that have paid their dues carrying their gig equipment upstairs to play a gig, maybe make $40 or something for a gig, and then come on with a backache. It's like, I've got to have a light Strat for my age group now. It's no, I'm one of those guys, a little bit older, but for me, I like kind of a medium weight guitar. Yeah. Tonal wise, it does make a little bit of a difference, but I don't think it's enough. I think it's more about pickups and the amp and pedals and stuff that you use is a big part of it. Yeah. So it doesn't matter light, heavy, medium weight. To me, it all sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's just what you like, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so going back to the custom shop thing. I mean, I'm a owner of a custom shop guitar which I love, which Yuri Shishkov made. He's still at the custom shop, isn't he?
Oh yes, he is.
He must have been there a long time as well now.
He's been there for a few years. Yeah.
Danish Pete's got a custom shop guitar. Have you got a custom shop guitar?
I've got a custom shop Strat 64.
See, all the guys at Andertons. That was Joss, by the way. And so I guess we're all, we've obviously all at some point or other felt that connected enough with it that we've gone, I need to spend the money to get this guitar over and above like an American Standard model. But again, there is this thing within the custom shop, which I know there are two levels that you can kind of buy into, which is team built. Team built's probably an unfair. In other words, it's a non-specified builder, if you like.
Right.
Or you can go Masterbuilt and actually specify the builder. Where do you... I mean, I must admit, I don't have a massive amount of experience of this concept of Masterbuilt. This one is Masterbuilt, but not... The story behind this one is Yuri did a tour of the UK, a little bit like you're doing now.
Right.
But... you were there as well, weren't you, Simon? It's like, this is how long we've all been doing this. But he did a tour in 2004 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Strat. and he was taking pre-built guitars that he'd built and showing how you reliced them and how you did the closet classic thing.
Right.
And this just happened to be the one that he did in Andertons. And he did this. So I felt almost like a sentimental connection to sort of go, well, let's buy this one. The other guitars, the ones that Pete's got, are team built ones, and certainly I don't, they all feel great. So what do you think? What's the angle, if you like, that you would say to someone? Well, when you get Masterbuilt, you just get this little extra.
I can explain it to you briefly. What we do on the team built side, it is just that. It's a team of skilled craftsmen that come together and work in a shop to build custom guitars, whether it be a run of guitars or one-off guitars, using specific woods and professionalism from all the people there. It's a great guitar. Masterbuilt is a different animal. We're just right next door to the team built thing, but we're separated with the wall. Loud music. We're guys that are passionate about what we do, but the individual take on each one of our guitars, it's everything that we put into a guitar when we work with the customer. Yeah. So Masterbuilt, usually if a customer specifies, I'd like to stay in touch with the master builder.
Okay.
And we will make a call to them or email depending on where they're at, and correspond with them throughout the build. Because we want to make them feel like they're part of the build. I think it's really important.
Sure.
That way they feel when they get the guitar, I had something to do with this, which I think is a cool thing. You're paying big bucks for it. We want them to feel confident when they open the case. And in my opinion, when I finish one of my guitars, my goal is to make that their number one guitar. A lot of times it has happened. Sometimes, regretfully, it doesn't happen, but because they've got a real, 54 Strat, how are you going to compete with that? But it's always been my goal, and a lot of the builders' goals is to make them the best guitar, because we know they've been waiting for a long time for the guitar.
I'm glad you mentioned that, how you're going to compete with an original 54 Strat. I mean, I think that's a great question, and one where I don't buy into this idea that just everything old is better than everything new.
Yeah.
I'm not a vintage collector. I totally understand. I wish I'd had the foresight 25 years ago to go and buy as many 60s Strats as I could possibly afford, because I'd have made a fortune on them.
Exactly.
So I get the financial investment side of it, and I even get the emotional side of just this. If you love electric guitars, it must be wonderful to feel like you own a real piece of history.
Yeah.
But I've probably tried 50, 60 vintage Strats in my time, and I think the percentage of the ones that are really magical versus the ones that are a bit of duff, or versus the ones that are just like okay in the middle, if anything, it's more inconsistent than modern custom shop Strats. I mean, have you got do you genuinely still think that there was some mojo back in the 50s and 60s that you just can't recreate now, or do you think that is a myth?
Well, we've come a long ways from 1954 to 2018. It's just there's so many new ways that we do things now, but we still try to keep the original mojo in the guitars that we make, which is, we don't want to change that. But you got to keep in mind, back in those days, nobody thought that the company was going to be a huge global-wide success like it is now. It was a production guitar. You got some great guitars out there, which I admit, and some of the people out there that own those guitars, it's a gem. There were some guitars that maybe weren't so great. And today, when people find those guitars, it's just because it's a 1954 Strat. Doesn't mean it's going to sound like an amazing guitar back then. It's like, I don't get all the hype. But the thing about custom shop stuff is we've honed in on the skills of making the guitar the best way we can. And I go on record saying it all the time. I think today's guitars are the best guitars we've ever made. Nothing against the early 50s and 60s guitars. They're great guitars. And there are some magic things in the pickups, the way they age, and the playability and everything, and the components were a little bit different. We try to stay as close as we can to the original components, but obviously there's some things that we can't get, so we search out other vendors to help us to get the best components we can to put in the guitar. But there's no doubt in my mind that today's guitars are the best they've ever been.
Well, we are going to probably make a separate video with John after we finish this one, because Andertons first opened in 1964. It's always had a special, that year's had a special kind of association with Andertons. So I want to get some advice from you about what special things we could kind of do on a run of Strats that are special for that year, but we'll probably release that video a little later in the year. But stay tuned. I do think it would be, there must be some amazing stories from artists that you've worked with as a master builder over the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to hear, what are the that you can repeat on camera without getting sued or sacked?
Rated G, like in the United States. We've all the builders have had a good handful of artists that they've got to work with, and it's like a dream come true for us to be able to do that to some of them. And when we look at them, when we meet them, when we talk to them stuff, they're no different than you and I. They're just guys. Some of them have the egos that go along with it, but when they're in the shop with us or when we meet them one-on-one, they're just naturally cool people to deal with and talk with, especially when you're talking business. And I've been fortunate enough to work with quite a few big artists, and from Jimmy Vaughn to John Mayer. I haven't done anything for Clapton. I did meet him one time at the Crossroads Festival, and that was a thrill right there. Yeah. Jeff Beck, I've shook hands with him before. I did make a guitar for him, but I didn't get to present it to him, but he did get it. And I remember him saying on camera, he goes, they're giving me old guitar back. And it was the Yardbirds Telly, 56 Telly. And I'm like, oh, come on, dude, you're saying that for camera. But I think he generally thought it was his guitar that he was getting back. So that was a success story right there. But some of the bigger ones, artists that aren't with us anymore, of course, Stevie Ray was one of the biggest ones for me ever to be a part of. Rory Gallagher, of course. This year we released the Vaughn Brothers set, so there's a Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Vaughn guitar together. Got to work with Jimmy, hang with him, really great cat, and do stuff with him. Of course, my favorite project thus far has been the Gary Moore Strat that I did. Yeah. Gary was a huge influence on me, and still is today, even though he's gone now. It's just it's an unbelievable guy, and people associate him playing with other brand guitars, which is understandable, which you do. But I always remember seeing him, and especially the first time I saw him, he always had that Strat. And when I first saw him opening for Rush back in the day in LA, he came out with that Strat and just floored me. I went there with my Rush shirt on. I was like, Rush, Rush, Rush. And then when Gary hit the stage, I didn't even think about Rush anymore. It was like, who is that cat? I need to know. Yeah. And I already kind of knew who he was through Thin Lizzy and all that stuff, but turned out to be the best for me. But yeah, and working with him, not with him, but for him to do the tribute thing we did was unbelievable experience for me. Very emotional.
I had a really grainy, I'm just trying to remember what it was called now. I can hum the song.
Empty Rooms.
Empty Rooms. Yeah. So I had this VHS video that must have stretched because I watched it so many times, but there was one solo and he didn't have, I think he was playing a Jackson or something like that. Right. But there was one solo where and it was, I'd never seen it done before, but they'd obviously managed to put a camera down the fretboard, and you'd see this, which I guess you probably see a million times on YouTube now, that same angle, but I'd never seen it before then. And that whole album was just, what a player. What a player. Yeah, I mean, another tragic loss to the guitar. We got to meet his son, Jack, about last year, and he's forging a career as a player now, and really lovely guy. So there's a video on our channel if you want to see him, and he had some amazing stories about what it was like growing up in and around that household. But
I mean, there's other guys that working with Yngwie Malmsteen, who's he's a character of himself, but he's really cool guy, down to earth. And what was cool about him is most of the time, I had to fly here to see Gary's guitar. They weren't going to let it leave where it was at, which I totally understood. So I had to be really careful of taking all the specs and photos and everything for that guitar and come home and recreate a prototype for that guitar, which I think I nailed it pretty close the first time. Yngwie Malmsteen's story was a different thing. His guitar was retired at that time.
This is the yellow one, is it?
This is the one he came to America with, So as he said, this is the one he brought with me to America, and it had the Play Loud sticker and the duck sticker on it. My accent is bad. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'm trying to be Stockholmish with him, but
more is more.
Yeah,
that's the only Yngwie Malmsteen impression I can do.
How come less be more? More is more. But he let me have that guitar for 4 months.
Cool.
So I had that guitar at the shop, put away under a towel. Nobody could play it or anything. And every day I would work on the prototype 1-to-1 with the guitar, which is beautiful to have that. So I could really get everything exactly the way I wanted it. And
what are the tools you've got for, what are the tools you've got for really? Because I'm guessing, short of taking the neck off and taking the scratch plate off, do you have imaging software so you can kind of get an idea of the density of timbers, or how do you count how many winds are on a pickup and all that kind of stuff? I mean, what do you...
There's specific tools we have for, measuring meters and stuff for pickup, things like that. Scales that we bring with us to weigh the bodies and necks. And, of course, we depend on photos for the grain patterns of the guitar. Obviously, taking the scratch plate off, as you guys call it here, to see the underneath.
Pick guard.
The
sorry.
pick guard.
Yes, okay.
Is what we call it. Or the back plate.
It's all right. Well, you called it you called it football as well. I wasn't going to correct you on
What
that
is football?
one,
Come on.
It's just,
But it's important to us to have specific tools when we spec out guitars. As far as like you're talking about relicing and stuff like that, we have a lot of homemade tools. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, they just got a chain, mate, and they put it on the bottom of the thing and put it behind their car and drag it around the parking lot.
Yeah.
That might be the way some people do it, but that's not the way we do it.
You do that. Try that.
Yeah.
Try that with your guitar and see if it comes
but
out
the
looking
the
anything
asphalt
like...
has to be a bit gravelly, so you get more of the specific wear patterns on the back and front, right?
I remember Yuri when he did this one. Now, I should say on this one, Yuri didn't do the relicking on this. He did the closet classic level of finishing, and my internal guys did the relicking. So if it's not as good as some of the others you see here, that I'll take that on the chin. But I remember Yuri, to get the neck tint, had his secret sort of squeezy bottle of what looked like, I don't know, dirty water, but like dirty old tea, and God. And we're like, what would you put in that? What is in it, Yuri? And he's like, I can't tell you. If I told you, I'd have to kill you, in whatever accent Yuri has. But yeah, so he would just...
Russian.
Yeah, he would sort of sit there and but anyway, I thought it was fascinating. And again, I think you're right. The relic thing, I've come to terms with how people feel about relic now, and there is no point trying to convince someone that doesn't like it that they should like it.
Right.
And so I'm sort of like, I'm at peace with relicking now, but I love it. I love what it does to the feel of the guitar.
Sure.
I love what it does to my own sense that it doesn't bother me anymore if it gets another mark, which I think does affect your attitude. I'll play it more because I don't worry about somehow getting a mark on it that I might be upset
a ceiling
about.
fan or something like that.
It doesn't,
you got to worry about.
And I certainly think that there's another one of these, unbelievably difficult to sort of quantify elements that just sort of feels like the more the lacquer is the thinner the lacquer, or the more the lacquer comes off, somehow or other the guitar becomes more lively, sort of vibe behind it. But again, that's another one of those things that you don't really know because you've been told that that's what's happened. Is it psychosomatic? So you think it's happening, whether it is. But that's my vibe anyway, and I can only go from it as someone that's played lots of these guitars. But it always fascinates me, going back to when you're doing the tribute, like the Gary Moore tribute and stuff. The detail. I remember seeing I remember having a Gary Moore Strat in here that the customer sent back, because there was a mark on the input jack of the guitar. It was the Relic one, or it was warped or something, and he sent it back, and we sent it back to Fender, and then we got Jake or somebody just went, yeah, that's literally the input jack on Dave Gilmour's guitar is a bit warped.
That's the way it was.
So we've warped it. And it's like, okay. It's like, have it back.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's insane levels of detail.
We do that too. And a lot of times, do we really have to do that? Because you're not going to see that underneath the guard. I really take that into strong consideration when I do my vintage pieces, right down to like, we get a body cut out, all the jack holes and everything are cut like perfectly, but I'll do that extra thing that they did back in the 50s because the holes were a little too small, narrow for the jack plate, so they used to have to chamfer them out with a file a little bit. I don't have to do that. I do that. And people go, what the hell did this guy do here? And then they start looking at their history books. Oh, wow, that's exactly how they did it back then. And there's like a tooling hole right here, right here, right here, and right here. Not a tooling hole, it's a nail hole. Because when they used to paint the bodies and they would stick it on a board on top to let it dry, I do that as well. Right down to the little piece of tape that I put inside there with the, it would have like the builder say Mary from 1957 on there, which there's a lot of them that I found. So I found a way to do my name on there and put the specific year that I'm building on there. So I put like John Cruz on a little piece of masking tape, and then the date of the guitar, say it was November. I put November '63 on there, which is the year I was born. And and then I'll age it, make it look like old. So when the guy pulls it off, even though he probably never will, but if a tech opens it up, he'll go, "Oh Jesus, we got a real guitar here." But we're not trying to fool anybody, because all the Masterbuilt stuff has the decal on the back of the headstock. Yeah. But it's just little things like that I like to put into my vintage pieces. So when somebody gets it, they'll know that I've done my research, my homework, so to speak, to get the guitar as accurately as close to a vintage spec as possible.
So what is there left to achieve for you as a, is there still, is there a dream still of like, I don't know, do you want to invent your own shape, or do you want, what's the dream for?
Yeah, I've been doing it for 30 years now. I would never say I'm burned out on doing it. I'm really not. I still got a lot of energy for a guy in his 50s, But, everybody dreams of wanting to go off and start their own business doing it at some point. I've kind of entertained the idea about it, and, you never know. I have enough people that like what I do that it'd probably do pretty good. Would it compete with the Big F? I doubt it. But would I want to do that? Probably not.
And I think there's been I suppose in fairness, you look, lots of people whose name is John and different surnames have left the custom shop and done their own thing, some to more success than others.
Yeah.
So I guess, as you say, there's no doubting all these people are very talented builders, but I think when it comes to creating a guitar that somebody wants to own, there's way more other stuff goes into it, isn't it? And a big slice of luck, I guess, as well as all the other vibe that goes into it. But okay, well, look, I got one last question for you before we kind of take an intermission and we talk about this idea for 64 Strats. What's the one? Like, actually, no, maybe I've got two questions. If you could have a Masterbuilt guitar made for you by Fender, which master builder would you ask to build it?
Well, there's so many talented builders that we have there.
This one,
it could be me. It would be me. Nobody's going to build my Strat the way I want it.
Okay.
I'll build the Strat the way I want. I want to feel it, and everybody has their own partake of what they think the guitar should be like, which is great. That's why we're master builders.
Yeah.
But to me, the heartbeat of the whole guitar is right here. It's that neck.
Yeah.
It's got to feel like an old pair of shoes, an old pair of jeans, if you will. When you pick it up, it's not like a sharp neck, and it's like you play it a couple minutes, it's not me. I want somebody to pick it up and go, yeah, that's the one.
There's a lot of nodding going in the room here.
Well, I hope nodding's going this way and not this way.
No, it's definitely going this way.
But any one of those guys I would trust to build me a guitar. Of course, I'd bitch about it all the way through because you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right. But I'd love to build my own guitars, and I do have a couple of guitars that I've made that I adore. I play.
And what's the one then? Of all the guitars that you've maybe ever built, that you just think, if I had to.
Specific year or something.
Yeah, well, if somebody sort of said, right, we're gonna do a special John Cruz kind of exhibition.
Right.
What's the one guitar that you would say that I remember that one? I built this one and it's just that's the one. That was the centerpiece, the pinnacle of anything I'd ever made.
Yeah, there's lots of specific years that were great years, but my favorite one, get a pen and a piece of paper out, write this down in case you want to order something in the future. It's a 1961 Strat.
Yeah.
And mainly because, and it's not the year, that was the best year for making Strats. It's just synonymous with me with Gary Moore having a 61 Strat, Rory Gallagher's guitar was a 61 Strat. Those are my heroes.
John Mayer?
John Mayer owns a 61 Strat, but he has a lot of 63 Strats as well.
Okay.
But it was just a great year to have a Strat in that point, and my heroes later on that they have those Strats. It's like so I specifically nailed it to that year. I love the colors, the pastel-y type colors. The sunburst I really like in that year because they would do the wide faded burst, and so that's the year that I would do, and. The specific neck shapes were really good, that C shape. But I have bigger hands, so I like to make the girth on the back of it just a little bit thicker. I just like that. So if I were to build a guitar, say we were going to do like a run for somebody, it would probably be a 61 Strat. I like to have like the basic stock vintage look, but a little bit more going on under the hood, so to speak. Being with custom pickups, obviously the frets, the fretboard radius has to be right, has to feel like amazing. I've really getting into my trick wiring stuff lately, which I really dig. The volume tone was a great design, but for me it's not practical because I never use this tone back here. So what I've been doing lately, and a lot of people are really catching on, they're digging it. I'm not saying I'm the first guy to do it, but I do it with a lot of my customers and they really love it now. It's where I do the master volume, master tone in all three positions, and then I have a blend pot that I put back here, which is really cool because you can be in the number 1 position here, and you can turn this up, and you can blend in that neck pickup, get that little Telia, type of sound to it. It's really great. And then, in the number 2 and the number 4 position, you can get all 3 pickups on. So not only you got the 5-way switch, but you got a little bit more extra in there hidden underneath the hood. So little basic modifications and stuff like that, I think are cool. I've been a big fan of the lower output pickups lately, just because, the hot pickups are great and everything if you're like the metal guy, or, sometimes like the clean players stuff, they get one that's a little too hot and it's not quite them. So I was talking with our Japanese guys a while back, and they were asking me, do you have basic low output pickups?
That's a good impression of a
Well,
Japanese
they've been around
person.
a lot of times, man. I've gone to dinner with them,
That was
I've
better
drinking
than the
with them.
Ingrid Malmsteen one, anyway.
Well,
that's
I'm
for
working on that one, man. I just got to get the sunglasses and leather pants, but not. It's just their way of thinking guitars is like very vintage.
Yeah.
So I really was savvy on that, and I thought, after doing the Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar and seeing what the readings were on his guitar, his pickups were actually low output pickups.
Okay.
The magic that was coming out of his pickups on that guitar was right here.
So what's the Texas Special thing that's so synonymous with him?
Well,
Isn't
that was a pickup that was in design with him, with the R&D team and Stevie while he was still alive.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And after he was gone, obviously I think they moved forward with it to put it in the Stevie Ray Vaughan model guitar, which is available.
Yeah.
So if people think that the SRV number one that I did, the Relic one has Texas Specials, that it's not true. They're basically voiced off of his original pickups, which are lower output pickups.
Okay.
So I was working with Abigail Yabar, who's now retired at the time, and I wanted to come up with a set of pickups like that for our Japanese guys. And I wanted to do like a lower output pickup. So we made like several prototypes of the pickup, and I took them home and tried them on my guitars. There was a couple of them that were like, they sounded great, but it wasn't quite there yet. And then we landed on this one, and it was the one. And it's the one that I came back with. I said, it's like this right here, write me 5 sets of those. And I put them in a couple guitars and sent them to Japan, and they just freaked out. So I've been getting a lot of orders from them for those pickups, and I kind of like to keep that exclusive to my guitars only that I build. It's not, hey man, I make great pickups. It's something I just want to keep as a special thing for somebody that spends the money for one of my guitars.
Oh look, man. Well, I tell you, the thing that has impressed me and amazed me the most is just how enthusiastic you still are.
Yeah, and that's not the coffee talking either,
No,
man.
I mean,
It's just,
it's I think anybody that's done anything for as long as you have to be as enthusiastic now as you clearly still are about it is inspiring. It's anyway, look, man, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in to Andertons. We're definitely going to enjoy talking about future guitars that we might decide to spec up with Andertons, and the fact that you're here and able to give your years of experience is going to be invaluable. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hope you guys have watched this. I will put links in the description below to the Fender Custom Shop if you want to go and find out more. And of course, you can always come to the store anytime you like to see a fine selection of guitars and talk to one of our experts. But anyway, for now, I've been the Captain. You've been watching Andertons, and we shall see you next time. Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Andertons Guitar YouTube channel. If you're a drummer or a keyboard player or interested in music technology, you might find one of our other channels interesting, and I'll put details of those in the description below. If you want to find out more about the products we've just featured, please click here. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt like this, please click here. If you want to watch another video on our guitar channel, click down here. And to subscribe to our guitar channel, click here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.